Hello everyone. I hope that you are all having a wonderful day. Today I feel like going on a dupe hunt in my collection. I have had a subscriber ask me, and I admit it was a while back, I hope she sees this video, if I knew of a dupe for this shade right here from Makeup Geek. So this is the shade Beach Please, and it's one of those shadows that is a perfect crease transition shade for like my skin tone, obviously. Okay, in this light it's like actually looking a lot more gray than I was thinking. I might change the light. I'll be right back. I think that light's a little bit better, but I admit I'm still a little frustrated. This shadow is looking a lot more gray on my screen than it actually is in real life, but sometimes it'll look like that on my screen and then I go to edit it and it's fine. So I'm gonna keep filming. Hopefully it's not too distorted here. But anyway, this is the shade I'm trying to do. It's called Beach Please from Makeup Geek, obviously discontinued. And I'm gonna go through my collection and see if I can find a dupe for it. I'm sitting here drinking my green tea from Ahmad Tea. Let's go. So I thought that first I could start in my mattes collection to see if there's anything remotely close to it. Let's try this one. This is from Sydney Grace. This is the shade Peyton's Puppy. I have a pretty good feeling this is gonna be much more pink in comparison, which it does. And that looks practically full-on pink compared to Beach Please. Let's try this one instead. This is the shade San Jose from Sydney Grace. And that one's just kind of peachy. This one's definitely more cool toned. That was definitely not it. This is a depotted Natasha Denona shade. This is the shade Vintage Taupe. Again, I keep picking shades that are a lot warmer than Beach Please, so that doesn't work either. Let's try from Sydney Grace. This is the shade Speedway, another shade I really love to use in my crease. That is a lot closer. Much, much closer, but still not a dupe. Speedway has more purple. Let me see if there's anything else, just to make sure. I mean, I think this one's gonna be way too gray. This is the shade Legendary from Sydney Grace, which there's a true gray in comparison to Beach Please, so much too gray. All right, so I don't have a dupe of it in my singles collection. Let's move on to palettes. So let's check in this Natasha Denona Ayana palette, the shade called Crease, which is that one. Actually, it might be kind of close. Let's watch them next to each other on the back of my hand. Okay, putting them next to each other, you can tell that no, Creased from Natasha Denona has a lot more pigment in it, but they're kind of definitely in the same tonal range. Man, this light, everything is looking so gray when it's not that gray. So that one didn't quite work out. I feel like there might be a dupe in this palette. I'm specifically thinking of this shade called Python. Okay, so looking at them, here's Python, there's Beach Please. Well, here's Beach Please, there's Python. Let's put them on the back of my hand again and compare them next to each other. No, actually, Python is a lot deeper. Try the shade next to it called Pebble Beach. And no, that one's just more neutral in comparison. Actually, you know what? Let's put those at the back of my hand as well. Oh, no. Beach Please, again, has oddly like some pink in it. Pebble Beach is just more neutral than Beach Please. Beach Please is more cool. Let's check Going Coconuts. The shade I'm thinking of is a shade called Culotta. Looking at it on my arm, here's Culotta, there's Beach Please. Oh, they look kind of close, don't they? I swatched them on this hand so that it wouldn't be so stained in comparison to this hand. Okay, so no, not quite dupes, huh? But they're actually quite similar. I think that's the closest one I've found yet. So I'm gonna set that one aside as a almost sort of dupe. Let's check the Taupes palette from Juvia's Place. I'm thinking maybe this shade here. No, that shade is definitely warmer than Beach Please. So then let's try this one. That is closer to Beach Please. So I'm gonna quick swatch those next to each other. This is the same hand that has Culotta on it. Again, not quite. This one is just a little bit lighter and doesn't have quite the right amount of pink in it, which I understand may be very hard to see, you know, on camera, but sitting here looking at it in person, it's not quite right, but it's one of the closer ones I've come across. So I'm gonna set that aside as well. Here I have my Kaleidos Cold Brew palette. Let's check this shade. Okay, so here's that shade from the Kaleidos Cold Brew. Here is Makeup Geek Beach Please. That far apart, they look similar. But again, let's put them next to each other. This one is Beach Please. This is the one from Kaleidos. Again, they're not quite the exact same in tone. The one from Kaleidos is a little bit more neutral, whereas the one from Makeup Geek has a little bit more pink in it, but they're actually really close to each other. So I'm gonna set that one aside as well. Nice. One shade I wanted to compare to is in the Pat McGrath Subliminal palette. I think that's what this one is called. The first one anyway, the original one. Specifically, this shade right here, right there, to right there. Okay, let's swatch those next to each other because that looks pretty close. Okay, that actually might be the closest one yet. So this is the one from Pat McGrath. That's the Makeup Geek shade. They're very, very close to each other. I think that might be the closest one I have found. Awesome. I'm gonna set this one aside as well. Let's quick look in the Sydney Grace Coffee Talk palette. Ooh, we've got another strong contender. So this is the shade Frappe. Loving all these swatches though. Whew, gorgeous. But let's compare those on the back of my hand together. Here we have Beach Please, and here we have Frappe from the Coffee Talk palette from Sydney Grace. So not exact dupes again, but there's definite similarities there. I think that the one from Makeup Geek is perhaps a little bit more cool toned. Setting that in that pile too. We've got some real winners here. Next up in my Lorac Fairy Tale Forest palette, I'm thinking this shade might be close. Since I'm running out of room back here on my arm, I'm gonna swatch it up here. As long as we remember, this is the Beach Please shade. Oh my goodness. Those are very similar to each other. They're still not exact dupes, but I do think they are very similar to each other. So again, that was the shade Mushroom from the Lorac Fairy Tale Forest. Or was it the Fairy Tale Forest? Yeah, Fairy Tale Forest. I keep wanting to call it the Enchanted Forest palette. Set that aside too. Now let's try this shade Soft Taupe from the Noir palette from Lorac. Oh no, right away, that one is way too warm. From the Sydney Grace Tiny Marvels palette, let's check out the shade Death Moth. I guess it's kind of hard to tell swatched in my hand like that, but I personally think it doesn't have enough pink in it. Yeah, it's too brown, not pink enough. Here I have the Sydney Grace Enduring Love. Let's see if there's anything in here that could be close. Maybe Victoria? Victoria might be a little deeper, but let's try it. Let's just put that one in the back of my hand here. This is Victoria. This was Beach Please. Actually, there are a lot of similarities between those two shades. They're very close. Victoria is much, much more pigmented. You know, it's Sydney Grace. Makeup Geek had a beautiful, nice, buildable formula. They're not nearly as pigmented as Sydney Grace shadows. But I actually think the shades are super similar. So we'll set that aside as well. Let's check my Beauty Bay Neutral palette. See if there's anything in here. Maybe this shade up here called Canyon. Oh, actually, that is also a contender. I'm putting that in the pile too. At the end, we'll swatch all the ones that are super close to it together. Actually, let's do that right now. I'm gonna go wash off my arm and then swatch out all the shades that I found in my collection that are closest to Beach Please. Okay, so starting with Makeup Geek Beach Please. What is on my finger? I don't know what that was, a piece of fuzz or something. Okay, Beach Please. From the Going Coconuts palette, the shade Culotta. For the Taupes by Juvia's Place, the shade down here. From the Kaleidos Cold Brew palette, first shade. From the Beauty Bay Neutral palette, the shade called Canyon. From Sydney Grace, the Enduring Love palette, the shade Victoria. The Lorac Fairy Tale Forest palette, the shade Mushroom. The Sydney Grace Coffee Talk palette. This palette is discontinued, by the way, but I brought it out just in case someone actually, had it in their collection. The shade Frappe. And then lastly, from Pat McGrath, the Subliminal palette, that shade right there, whatever that one's called. I think it does have taupe in its name. Okay, Wow. So some of these are obviously a lot deeper than others, just because some of these are also a lot more pigmented than others. Definitely, I don't have a dupe for the Makeup Geek formula in my collection. The formula from Makeup Geek was pretty special in my opinion. I don't think I've ever found a dupe for that. But as for a shade dupe, honestly, I'm thinking the ones that might be the closest are this one. This is the one from Beauty Bay, and this one, the one from Pat McGrath. But they're all honestly kind of very similar in tone. Even this one that looks super deep. If I blended it out more, you would see that it had kind of the similar tone. That's just the Sydney Gray shade. Super, super pigmented. But this was super fun. I really enjoyed doing this. Going on a dupe hunt is always super fun. If anyone else has a very favorite shade that they would like to know a dupe for, and if I have it, let me know. And I enjoy doing these types of videos. I might just do a video on it. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you all have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time. Bye!